facing the staunchest defense of the season. Back goes Mahomes. He's rushing. He's looking. It's intercepted. It's intercepted. Running with the football to the 25. Down the far side is DeJean. And DeJean is in for a touchdown.
Happy birthday, Cooper DeJean.
Cooper DeJean with a pick for a touchdown. Hurts back. Looking. He is going deep. And it is caught. Touchdown.
The Slim Reaper.
Devontae Smith, 46 yards.
The Slim Reaper.
It's over. The Philadelphia Eagles have won Super Bowl 59. They have beaten the Kansas City Chiefs 40-22. It's their second Super Bowl win in 7 years. What a game. What a season. What a team. The greatest Eagles team in modern history. Eagles fans, savor it and rejoice.
Welcome to NFL Daily, where we're celebrating one of the best teams I've ever seen. I'm Greg Rosenthal. I'm in I don't know what this is. A Carrier in the parking lot of Super Bowl 59. And yes, that was Merrill Reese making the calls during a 40-22 victory over the Chiefs that wasn't nearly as close as the final score indicated. Alongside me, Jourdan Rodrigue of The Athletic. Just walking through the door as I'm doing the intro is the man, Nick Shook, who's joining as well. And
he is about the size of our office today.
Yes, I am loving where we are. We're in a trailer. That's the word for it.
We're actually going to be picked up, lifted, and placed gently onto Shad Khan's yacht.
We just came from the field where we spoke with A.J. Brown. We spoke with Howie Roseman. We spoke with Cooper DeJean. That's all going to be part of this Super Bowl recap show that I'm so excited to get into. But I want to start with you, Jourdan, and think big picture about this Eagles team that didn't have to worry about one-score games against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, because they beat them down. It was 34-0 entering the fourth quarter. Where do you even start with this?
This defense is one of the most fun defenses I have ever watched in my entire life. Yes, I know I've been honking about Vic, MFing Fangio, and this group of young and old combined, this front that is so ferocious, these defensive backs and these linebackers that just swarm to the ball. It was absolutely a perfect plan, executed perfectly and so dominantly that at some point, Greg, I'm sitting there, you're on the call in the UK, and I'm sitting there looking around at Eric, the producer, who's just done an awesome job with us all week, sitting behind the proverbial glass right now. I look over at Eric, and I'm like, the Chiefs have 23 freaking net yards right now. We're late. What the hell? Like this, it was absolutely a beautiful, I'll say it, exquisite defensive performance. I had so much fun watching this game, even though it was a blowout.
We went into halftime, and it was 24-0. And at that point, I thought, the Eagles' offense is playing okay. Like, I would say they would look at it like they would have some things to work on, but they did some good things well. It was like a B-. B, first half. Saquon really wasn't getting anything done. Jalen Hurts threw a panicked interception. They took advantage of a couple turnovers, but they went into halftime probably thinking, we have some things to work on. And they were up 24 points in the Super Bowl against Patrick Mahomes. This is the most, until those garbage time touchdowns, this would have been by far the biggest loss of Patrick Mahomes' career in any game, regular season or playoffs, by scoring. And still at 18 points, it was like second place all time. They were up 34-0, as I said, because, Nick, it was as dominant a first half of defensive football between the pass rush and the coverage and all the groups working as one and just the ferocity that I've ever seen. And you can't tell me that blowouts can't be entertaining. I know it's not as great as like the Chiefs-Eagles from 2 years ago, but you can't tell me that those first 30 minutes of football especially were some of the most 30 exhilarating minutes I've ever seen in the Super Bowl, because it was just pure dominance, and it was shock, at least for me, that the Chiefs would get beat down.
Yeah, I mean, if you appreciate defense, then you love this game. And everybody should appreciate defense, by the way.
Hell yeah.
Because this is the type of performance that's going to live on for years because of how dominant they were. I keep going back to that one stat. 38.1% pressure rate on Patrick Mahomes. 0 blitzes the entire game. That's how good this defense was with their front four. How crazy is that? But really the tone was set on the second play of the game. They get the first down with a very well-designed little fake orbit motion out there. He hits Juju over there for a gain of 11. Next play, Worthy in the flat. Cooper DeJean tracks him down. And I'm like, they're flying around the ball. And then the pressure starts to get after him. And you realize they're only doing this with 4. Everybody else is in coverage. And then there became a point where I looked at Mahomes and I see him throw this interception to DeJean that ends up being returned for a touchdown, and I go back and look at the dots, and I'm like, they're just in quarter shells. Like the whole game, they're just in quarter shells. And he has no way to solve any of this.
Yeah, they played Vic Fangio's famous and comes alive with players of this caliber, but famous umbrella defense, right? And I love that play by Cooper DeJean because that was the moment where the Chiefs, I think, pooped their pants a little bit. Because and the reason why I say that is because their plan clearly was to do the exact thing that you do if you want to beat this defense, if you want to score on this defense, which is pick and pick and pick and pick away from it. And if you do that against the Eagles will ask their players to come down and match tighter out of that zone shell that they play and to come down and tackle hard in the flat and fly to the ball and do not let anyone get behind you, whether it is an explosive passing play or it is a catch and run that breaks into the third level. That is exactly the tone that Cooper DeJean set. And every single player along that defensive front, in the middle and in the back, followed suit and absolutely played like they were just flying to the ball every single snap.
Everybody gets a moment. That was the theme of this game. Avonte Maddox, he got a moment. Josh Sweat, a couple sacks. He got more than one moment. Jalix Hunt had a big first half in this game. He had a moment, and watching it in person, we're so lucky to be able to do so. We had nice seats there in the Superdome, right at the
50-yard line.
Yeah. And
I kept waving to Nick. We were all on the 50-ish, and we kept
air-fiving
from a distance. Yeah.
And seeing how they passed off the receivers, it's such a subtle thing that I don't understand all the intricacies of, but you know it when you see it. And there were so many times in that game that Mahomes actually had a lot of time. The average time to sack wasn't that low. It was actually quite high. And it felt like they were getting quick pressure and they were winning, but it wasn't a lot of quick, easy wins where they don't get touched. A couple of those happened, and it happened as the game wore on. But he's just holding and he's waiting, and there aren't guys open. And the couple times they were, and on the interceptions, Patrick Mahomes did something I've almost never seen him do at the NFL level. Not like he's a perfect person or a perfect football player. He panicked. Yeah. He did not play well in this game. He knew his guys were losing up front, and it reminded me of a couple moments during the regular season where he lost a lot of faith, not only in his receivers, but in his offensive line. Remind me a little bit of that Browns game, which was one of the worst Patrick Mahomes game I've ever seen. And it was just pure domination against the team that was on the precipice of history. And instead, we're going to be remembering this Eagles defense and really the whole team, because you have to give the offense a lot of credit too, as one of the best teams I've ever seen. I know they have 3 losses in the end, but we can go through each one of those losses. Other than that Bucs game, this was a wagon. And I feel good that NFL Daily picked them to win across the board.
Yeah,
there we go.
We all did it.
And it was interesting to set the scene for the listener, because some of this probably wasn't as clear on the broadcast as it was in the stands.
Yeah.
You knew with an hour and a half, if not more, before kickoff, that this was an Eagles crowd all the way through. And I liked this Super Bowl because I really liked how invested the fans were in it. There was a fan split. It wasn't sort of, hey, we're going to go because we have corporate seats and, there's teams playing. This was super passionate, loud. And I think that this was one of the most hostile environments the Chiefs have played in this year. Eric's a Bills fan. We were talking about maybe the Bills game on the road, maybe Baltimore. This was so hostile. They were booing the Chiefs cheerleaders during the 2-minute break and cheering for the Eagles cheer. I mean, it was merciless. Anybody could get it. Much like the defense on the field, anybody could get it, and they did.
It reminded me so much of the first Eagles title, which I would say till this point was the most one-sided crowd I'd ever been at for a Super Bowl. That they were ravenous. It was kind of a similar spot where the team fans, the Patriots, at that point were a little spoiled, don't show up as much. I mean, we did not see a lot of Chiefs fans around, although they were in the stadium. We did not see them around the city, and that the Eagles were ravenous, and it created an atmosphere that was absolutely awesome. We got cranked up before the game with all the New Orleans. I was like, I almost didn't need a game after that. We'll get into all of that parts of the game. But the way that they came out energy-wise, to me it's like hard to define, but you mentioned that pressure rate. It was over 50% up until the third quarter when they start tacking on, again, 2 touchdowns in the last 3 minutes makes it look a lot closer than it really was. But just a ridiculous performance from every level of a defense where you really couldn't find any weaknesses.
Yeah, I was going to insert it in the what we learned, and I just saw it drop late in the moments. But I was like, hey, this was the highest pressure rate since that Cleveland game, and it looked like it because he just had no time to throw. I also thought that, talking about energy and the tone and everything there, when there was a pass interference call, offensive pass interference on A.J. Brown, Nick Sirianni lost his mind on the sideline. And then as soon as they get a stop after that, he loses his mind again. They end up in the end zone, and they're just showing shots of him. I'm watching him run up and down the sideline. He's got the jaw, all the way open, just bellowing into the air, not the sky because it's an indoor stadium. And it was just, it was a sight to see. You could tell they came there on a mission, and they did not want to repeat what happened 2 years ago.
What I loved about the way that they set that tone defensively with their pressure. We talked about it. They rushed only 4 all game. They had, I haven't checked the final number, but through most of the game, they had not sent 1 blitz. And
although they confused me, I have to admit, on the call, I'm learning, how to do a call. It was on Talk Sport. It was beautiful. And I thought more than once that they did blitz, but no, it's Zach Bond, and it's the illusion of blitzing.
Those Sims and those creepers that actually aren't, and it's fascinating because he does that. He wants to drop everybody and get home with 4. And what I really liked that they did was they didn't immediately come out and try to bring Patrick Mahomes to the ground, because what they wanted to do was assert with their back end as well as their front. And when you are basically getting pressure on the quarterback on that initial wave, that initial pass rush, you're also trusting your defensive backs. You want them to come down, crash into that airspace and cover as sticky as possible. And they can't really do that if they're worried about the quarterback breaking contain, extending a play out of structure, and then hitting a throw downfield. What was very clear that they were actually trying to do is just disrupt him. They weren't trying to bring him to the ground every single time. They weren't trying to be outside themselves and individually get their stats up and make the plays. That came as the game continued, but it was so interesting because they were clearly trying to balance that Russian coverage to disrupt Mahomes enough, less so just take him totally out, and take him totally to the ground so that those DBs could come down and crash versus floating back a little bit to make sure that the ball didn't eventually end up behind them.
They fried his brain.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. By the second quarter, he was skittish. He was panicked. He didn't trust his offensive line. But another moment that I think exemplifies exactly what you were saying. Third down on that same opening series they had offensively. They run cover 1. And they put Cooper DeJean on the inside on Kelce. They're in a little bit of a stack formation here. And I'm thinking, all right, Kelce's going to be open over the middle. That's where he's going to look. That's immediately gone off the pre-snap. But what they also did is in cover 1, they bring down Reed Blankenship, and he takes away the middle field that maybe Mahomes could throw to. And then once that was gone, he had nowhere to go. And then Jalen Carter's after him, and the rush is there, and he's spinning around, and he's throwing a prayer that almost gets intercepted. And it was in that moment right there where I was like, oh, this defense showed up.
I think mentioning Kelce is spot on there because he had a nightmare game. In the first half of this game alone, they're not on the same page. Mahomes throws it behind him, helps to end the drive. Another one where a ball kind of goes near his feet. I don't know if you call it a drop or not, but Mahomes is a little skittish. Travis Kelce also runs into Kareem Hunt and helps to ruin a second down run. And then there was one play where Kelce was clearly the primary receiver. He's covered pretty quickly. It looks like it's man. I don't know if they confused him. It's actually zone, but they passed him off really well. Mahomes at the beginning of the play looks at Kelce, and at the end of the play looks at Kelce, and neither time he's open. And you saw this kind of ghostly look on Travis Kelce's face on the broadcast that we're watching in a green room in the fourth quarter. We go down to get into position, and during that fourth quarter, Marshawn Lynch is down there. And Marshawn Lynch is just, I forget what he said exactly. Do you remember what it was? I believe it was something to the effect of they whooping their ass. And then he essentially says, this is just like our Super Bowl. And that's the moment And that's the game that this reminds me of more than anything. Let's back it up to that first quarter that you mentioned. So the Chiefs get one first down the first time. It ends up being a first down that they sit on for basically the rest of the first half. Their first 13 passing plays, they had 11 yards. Their first 17 plays overall, they had 27 yards. As you guys mentioned, the Eagles get it back. They're moving the ball. The drive ends on that pass interference. The next drive that the Eagles have the ball, they hit a play. It's Jalen Hurts for the second time in the game, trusting what he sees, trusting himself. I love that throw he made to A.J. Brown on the fourth down, even though the penalty happened. It was beautiful. He saw the one-on-one. He saw the mismatch. A.J. Brown, even on Trent McDuffie, is a mismatch, and he just threw it. He was decisive. A decisive Jalen Hurts is a great Jalen Hurts, and he was just as decisive on his throw to Jahan Dotson.
Hurts in the gun. This time it's going to be 2nd and 11 from the 28-yard line. Hurts calling for it. 3 receivers right. 1 receiver left is A.J. Brown. Barkley stays in, picks up a big blitz pickup. Ball goes down the right-hand side into the arms of Jahan Dotson, and that will be an Eagles touchdown! Huge play down that right-hand side to the former Washington receiver. Saquon Barkley picking up the blitz, left in man coverage down the field. Dotson just beat his man on the outside, and a simple throw to open the scoring.
First big blitz that Spagnuolo sends. Saquon is ready for it. Jalen Hurts is ready for it. And how about Jahan Dotson? One-on-one coverage. We haven't seen him make a big play in months, and he gets the first touchdown for the Super Bowl.
He was saving it for you, Greg.
That's our Greg.
That was Will Gavin and Jeff Reinbold and myself on Talk Sports. And great touchdown call by Will Gavin. Unfortunately, it wasn't a touchdown.
I just love that moment. I love that moment for you, though. I also there's another layer to this that I love, Greg, and it's you were right. Because you said if Jalen Hurts starts to trust what he sees on the perimeter, especially when they start to send pressure, and he just lets it rip down either sideline, because he went back to A.J. Brown going the other direction on a similar play that was completed way later in the game, but he kept trusting his receivers, and that is something that, on the converse, the Chiefs could not do.
They also could get whatever they wanted outside the numbers. That was clear very quickly. And so when that specific play happened, I go back and watch the dots again, and I'm like, why would you press him with inside leverage and let him get free? Defenders' feet freeze. Greg ends up with a great touchdown call, even if it wasn't a touchdown. Everybody wins.
That is the only Talk Sport call we're going to hear tonight. We're going to hear from the home broadcasters, but that was really fun to do the first half of that game with Talk Sport. And you get so locked in on like a play-to-play basis when you're doing that. And that's why at the time when Jalen Hurts throws the interception where he panics a little bit, like I guess you could say he was trusting his receiver in that moment, but that was a blitz that from Nick Bolton where he did win right away over Cam Jurgens, immediate pressure, and Hurts just kind of throws it blind, hoping I think that was Devonta Smith. That was the intended receiver there. Brown was just going to make a play there. And that was a moment where it's only 7-0 at that point. They end up even settling for a field goal on another good drive where they decide not to go for it on 4th down, which I thought was a good decision at the time. But when Hurts throws that, you because we're so used to seeing the Chiefs over the years, you're like, oh, they're not taking advantage enough.
Yeah.
And all I can think about as we're kind of going through these plays is, the game plan was to make Jalen Hurts beat you for the second straight time in the Super Bowl. And Steve Spagnuolo got a lot of love over the last couple of weeks, and he deserved it. But they did stop Saquon Barkley. 25 carries, 57 yards on the ground, 2.3 yards per carry. And Jalen freaking Hurts, Super Bowl MVP, played outstanding for a second straight Super Bowl, a second straight game in these playoffs. This man did not make QB Island, but he's on top of the NFL now.
He has his own, I think, personal status because of how he plays in these Super Bowls. I mean, this is twice now that he has just played at an absolutely outstanding level, to the point where I even have it written in my notes. Like I marked down obviously the interception, but I put in parentheses next to it, interception's kind of a wash because he was seeing
Exactly.
the game really well. He was picking up yards on the ground. He was running up the middle. He wasn't just using the flats and the outside runs to pick up those conversions. He was running up the middle. They ran a couple of draws for him. They tried to disguise a couple of things using the pistol formation, which I love to see. And it was so interesting because he just seemed quite the contrary to Patrick Mahomes, that Jalen Hurts was in total control that entire game.
In this game setting especially. It's funny because if you look at it, at least in the first half, it felt a lot like a 2024 Patrick Mahomes game because he wasn't making mistakes. He was converting. He was doing what the offense asked him to do, and then he opened it up in the second half. He hits the long pass to Devonta Smith to ice it. He hits passes down the sideline, and that's when you realize, oh, this guy's going to win MVP, and they're cruising to a victory. I think it speaks to the fact that they're able to tune out the noise. You know, they've gotten plenty of criticism. People have doubted him. Not to go down that line, but they have. People don't get excited about him, and yet he's walking away a champion by commanding this offense on a day when the player that everybody wanted to see, Saquon Barkley, struggled to get going.
Now, the reality is they didn't need to have long drives in this game, but including that interception, they had a 9-drive stretch where they scored 7 times. It's like in the Super Bowl against this Chiefs defense. That's just outrageous. Nick, you mentioned the Devonta Smith touchdown in the second half. The game already felt over, but man, this felt kind of the moment that the entire stadium and the Eagles sideline could just start celebrating.
Pistol formation. Hurts in the gun. Trailed by Barkley. Hurts back. Looking. He is going deep. And it is caught. Touchdown!
The Slim Reaper.
Devonta Smith, 46 yards.
The Slim Reaper.
And he did the scythe. Did you see a celebration?
No.
He did like the Grim Reaper scythe.
I love that every single one of these wide receivers got to have their moment during the game. A.J. Brown had that touchdown in the first half that made it 24-0 after the second Mahomes interception, the great play by Zach Bond. I mean, there's so many great plays to go through, but that was kind of another moment where it felt like, okay, the score is now catching up with everything we're seeing.
I mean, I will even go back even further. Like that sequence, it was 3 consecutive plays in, I believe it was the second quarter. It was sack on Patrick Mahomes for a loss, sack on Patrick Mahomes for a loss, and then Cooper DeJean, obviously at that point, picks off Patrick Mahomes and runs it back for a touchdown. At that point, you started to really feel that stadium realize what was about to happen and what this defense was there to do. And I think it made for a great moment, too.
Mahomes in the gun. On first down, play action. They surround him. They sack him! At the 25, they got him. Josh Sweat.
Sweaty coming off the edge.
2nd and 14. Mahomes back again. He's looking. They got him again! They've got him for the second straight play, and this time it's Jalen Hunt.
And that was followed up, as you mentioned, by the Cooper DeJean interception. And it's pretty rare that you're seeing an all-time defense just start to stamp themselves in real time. I keep thinking about that Seahawks win over the Broncos, and there were moments in that game just like that, and that was the sequence for this team.
And Nick, it was so cool. I want to hear more about what you saw from just the different things that they were running with just a simple 4-man pressure. And simple, I say hilariously, it wasn't. But there were certain moments where on Chiefs possessions, including that one, where 3 different Eagles players sacked Patrick Mahomes. Like Greg said at the top, everybody could get a piece of the action. And there were 2 separate possessions, and one was a split sack in the second quarter. But when Patrick Mahomes was sacked multiple times in a possession, it was always different players who were doing it. Milton Williams.
Yes.
Some might say the Nick Shook of the Philadelphia Eagles was getting multiple sacks and had a great game today.
Yeah. The Sweat sack specifically was a tight end slip where Kelce was trying to get out for a quick screen, and the ball never got there because Sweat was in Mahomes' lap before he knew it. The next play, it's just chaos. It's just guys beating the offensive lineman in one-on-ones and swarming on him. And then that's exactly what influences the pick. And that sequence right there is what I think, like you said, told everybody, oh, well, we're in for something that we haven't seen in a long time. The pick six itself was a product of, again, Mahomes being uncomfortable. He'd just been sacked twice. He rolls out to the right. He sees a tiny window where I think it was DeAndre Hopkins he tried to throw to. It was never there. It gets picked off, and as soon as DeJean gets into the end zone, I just sat back and went, wow. Like, my mouth was just agape. Wow. Like, this is going to go this way.
Like, this is actually happening.
Yeah.
Because until that three-play sequence what we're talking about, the Eagles were up 10-0, and they were dominating that game. They hit the Jake Elliott field goal with about 8.5 minutes to go in the second quarter. 7 minutes later, they're up 24-0. 2 minutes later, they have that touchdown. And that A.J. Brown play, to me, was so cool. It was schemed up to the point that, like, of course, who was it? Was it Bolton trailing after him?
Yep. Ton of traffic.
Has absolutely no chance to make that. But to me, it was the culmination of one of the all-time great receivers that I've covered over the last 20 years, a guy that I think will be in the Hall of Fame someday, and a guy that changed this organization when they somehow got him from Tennessee. We had a chance to talk with A.J. Brown on the field afterwards. Let's listen to Jourdan and myself with A.J.
Here with A.J. Brown, you arrived in Philadelphia, helped change this organization. You've won all pros. You've done everything individually. Talk about your journey to get to this moment as a Super Bowl champ.
I'll be here all day if I talk about my journey.
We got time.
Yeah. I mean, it's truly a blessing. A lot of hard work, a lot of long nights, early mornings. Man, a lot of sacrifices, and only for this moment right here. And it's so surreal.
AJ, your face is saying 1 million words right now. Can you just describe everything you're feeling for us? And I mean, it's just crossing over your face in flashes and waves. It's amazing to watch.
I'm excited. I love doing these interviews, but I really want to go celebrate with my teammates. I'm in a rush to go celebrate with them in the locker room.
Go do it.
Go do it. We're so happy for you. Congrats. AKA when me and A.J. Brown almost cried together on the field, because when people tear up, I also tear up. So he was extremely emotional. Go watch this on video on YouTube, because you can see our camera guy, Jay. He did an amazing job following us as we kind of moved around. Players were coming in and out, and it was so emotional. A million different thoughts flashed across his face as he was talking to us, and I loved that moment with him, because he was like, I got to go cry with my teammates now, basically.
Right, that was a great job by our booking crew, including Matt Schneider, because AJ was ready to not be talking, but also was absolutely appreciating this moment, and that's what is so cool about this Super Bowl. We'll hear from Cooper DeJean, him talking about his interception. To him, it's one thing. Like, he'll look back on this and realize all that he didn't know. But for guys like a Brandon Graham, who's been here a couple times before, and we'll also hear from a guy like A.J. Brown, who's achieved everything you can on an individual level, like, it's such a great story for all these individual players. And yet the Eagles, Nick, are just sort of like this. It's weird that they feel like a super team, even though I know they weren't favored in this game. Of course, in hindsight, that seems crazy. And once again, I'm thinking about that Seahawks game, because they weren't favored in that game either. They were very slight underdogs. I did find the Marshawn Lynch quote. We strive for accuracy here on NFL Daily. Marshawn Lynch said, "They're beating the brakes off them."
That's better.
Just like we did back in that Super Bowl against the Broncos.
Yeah, this team, I think, is a perfect example of veteran leadership and young talent drafted strategically to fill needs, coalescing at the perfect time and coming together. And I think that they also had to, they talked about this all week, we have to, wash the stink of 2023 off of us. They didn't say that. They said they were grateful for going through that, but that's what it felt like from the outside. Everybody, kind of downplays their potential because of what had happened last year, without paying attention to the fact that since week 7, they've been the best defense in the NFL, in my opinion, and many other opinions. And I think we all learned, they say, you're going to learn today. Everybody learned today about how good these Eagles are and where they could have said. They have some free agents coming up. But Howie Roseman, he's the best GM in football.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought Howie Roseman up, because we also had a chance to talk with him, Gregg, and we asked him about that exact thing. It's been so cool to watch this team sort of express itself, like grow up together, even the old guys going to meet the young guys as they sort of started hitting this climb in their rookie careers. And I was excited that we got to talk to Howie after the game because we asked him exactly that. How did he build this roster to have these guys all meet each other in this moment at various points of their careers?
All right, here with Howie Roseman, the general manager of the Super Bowl champions. Howie, you have a job that is always looking ahead. How does it feel in this moment to just enjoy what you've accomplished?
Yeah, we have a special group of people, and so you celebrate a special group of people. Really proud of them. Can't wait to celebrate all night with them.
Howie, you rebuilt this team so fast to be in contention so quickly. A combination of brilliant youthful players and that energy, and some really savvy veterans. What was your strategy, and how did you connect everybody?
I think, obviously we had an opportunity to come here in 2022. We didn't finish. And I think, we just wanted to pick players that fit what we were trying to do. Offensive, defensively, guys who knew how to work, guys who had tremendous character and had tremendous talent.
They did
an unbelievable job.
Sorry about that. Who are some of the players that you're most happy for and their stories of you bringing them to the organization?
I mean, everyone's got a story, like when we talk about guys overcoming adversity and, Brandon Graham come back and playing my first draft pick 15 years ago and playing in the Super Bowl, 2-time world champ. Isaiah Rodgers out of football for a year. Saquon, there's so many. I could go on and on. And, our head coach did a tremendous job. Very proud of everyone.
Nick Sirianni has been an emotional leader in so many ways for this team, but it's a collective as well with those assistants. Everyone seems to mesh so well. Your hiring strategy and balancing that just as important as your roster building.
No doubt. We want good people out on the field, and I think we have tremendous people. And, we took a picture yesterday. It wasn't just scouts. It was performance. It was trainers. It was equipment. Everyone in football out. We got a great deal.
Congratulations. Go enjoy it.
Thank you,
Howie.
Shout out to Howie Roseman. Putting me in my place for not having the proper energy really to start that. That was a good lesson. I'm just watching everyone's on the field. He seems so chill and matter of fact and business-like that he was absolutely right. You got to crank up. You got to meet them at their level, and just a masterful job by him and everyone that works under him. This is an organization where I do think the credit kind of funnels one way to Howie Roseman, and that's fair. He is really the most important person in the organization, I would say, if you have to pick one out of their quarterback, I guess, because he's the quarterback. But that staff that he has on the pro personnel side, his assistant GM Alec Hallaby, who's been next to him for all of these years and helped build up that team, the process that they've really had since they took over for Chip Kelly when Howie basically got back in power, and how consistent they are. We were talking about the same exact points when we were recapping their Super Bowl win against the Patriots, which is they're going to build on the lines. They're going to invest draft picks and money, and then more money, and then more draft picks, and it's going to be every single offseason. They're going to look at every possible route to improve their team. So obviously they've done well drafting lately, but they always are getting extra picks. And then they've done a great job in the trade market. Jahan Dotson was a trade that was criticized for about 6 straight months, and it came in handy. I was wrong. That was not the first big play that he made, because he made another one in the playoffs, and it's come up big in the playoffs for them. And then, pickups obviously like Zach Bond. So just a great story in terms of team building. We'll talk even more about the Eagles and, of course, the disappointment of this Chiefs team. So close to history. And now they're just starting at the bottom, just like your Bills, Eric. Back on NFL Daily. I was going to say I'm going to miss that song coming back from break, but...
What's to miss? We'll be back.
Yeah.
You're going to see it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Just I guess this wasn't a game-specific sound.
Yeah, shows to do.
We will be here on NFL Daily.
Gregg's
Maybe not
in
tomorrow. We've got a late
Gregg's in his
flight.
feelings.
I
He's
already
wistful about the season.
am in my feelings.
Vitamin C's graduation.
I want to talk about the coaching staff for the Eagles a little bit. What a journey we've been on with Nick Sirianni. Seeing him celebrate on the field, seeing him hold up the Italian flag with Dom while Eagles fans are like, "You had it all the way, Nick. We love you, Nick."
Even though they yelled at him like 6 weeks ago.
We wanted you to get fired last year, Nick.
I also want to know, who are these fans that get on the field? They must be like family members or friends of friends. I don't know, but he was loving it. It was a scene, and I just was thinking, Nick, if Nick Sirianni was feeling himself before, just wait until now. This morning started with Adam Schefter throwing a report out how, hey, by the way, Nick Sirianni's due for a raise, and if they win this game,
how that happened?
Ben Johnson, just reset the coaching market, and Nick Sirianni has now won the second most amount of games in the history of the NFL in his first 4 seasons. If you can guess who's number one, Nick, I will give you $50.
Can I get a hint of era?
No.
Can I guess?
No.
Why?
Because
as a first-time head coach.
I saw the graphic and you were next to me, so you might have seen it.
As a first-time head coach.
All-time first 4 years of his career, yeah. I mean, we got to make it fast.
Sean McDermott.
No, it was George Seifert. That would have been a
you know
tough one.
what? That doesn't count. He showed up to an already
Let's
made
give
program.
Sirianni some pop for leading this team, and also, again, for Howie Roseman for keeping Sirianni at a time when a lot of people did not think they should keep him. They kept him, but they got rid of his coordinators, and they picked his coordinators for him.
Well, yeah, it was a perfect combination of, look, we realized that we didn't do well with our staff, that the dysfunction that we had on the defensive side, we had Sean Desai as defensive coordinator, then it was Matt Patricia. Nobody really knew what was going on. Let's replace those guys. Let's go get Vic Fangio, who started his career as a coach in Philadelphia, and he wants to come back because Miami doesn't want it for some reason, and he's capable of coaching these young guys that we've stocked our defensive room up with. And then they just put it all into plan. And what they did that was probably most important was after Nick survived, because that press conference that they had where they announced that he was coming back, nobody really knew going into that day. Jeff Lurie was there. Howie was there. It was
very weird
very
vibes.
Tense,
the
very
opposite
strange.
vibes from today.
Yes, exactly. So to consider where they were essentially at this time last year to now is an incredible journey that has so much to do with the right decisions that they had made in tough times and assembling a hell of a roster.
Let's listen to Nick on the podium.
Your coordinators, I thought, both offensive and defensive, Fangio and then Kellen Moore, were outstanding today.
Yeah, Vic's been a great coordinator in this league for decades, and he was awesome today. Kellen, let's run this. Let's run this back, Kellen. Let's run this back.
I love that. I gave Kellen Moore hell over the last several weeks because it's just some of the tendencies that he would fall into. I thought he called a great game tonight. I really did. It was classic that it was in the Superdome, where he may well be coaching as a head coach like as of Tuesday. But it is I know I'm like the Vic Fangio obsessive, right? I get that. Like I'll wear
You
that.
just like defensive coordinators.
Like I love everything he did this season. He didn't want to be in Miami. He came back to the place that called to him, where he had consulted before, that he really wanted to be. But what I really like about what Vic did as well, and what Nick Sirianni did, and what they all did as a collective, they brought in really good people as assistants too. Clint Hurt, that defensive line coach, what an absolute masterpiece he put together tonight. And with that defensive front and with that rush plan. Christian Parker and Joe Casper are my age. I am 33 years old. They are the defensive backs coaches for this team, and they are responsible for not only bringing this mix of veteran players and rookies up to speed in an extremely complicated and tendency-oriented defense, but they also reach players in ways that Vic Fangio has admitted sometimes he cannot. And so I think that it was an extremely thoughtful, meticulous, and balanced staff that the Eagles did put together this year, and it kind of resembles their team in a way. You mentioned their front office, Greg. Jeff Scott came over from the Commanders. He's a veteran. He's one of their executives. Brandon Hunt is one of their executives. Charles Walls is scouting director. Amina, who has been made waves as, for her work as in the scouting departments and in analytics. It is a mixture of young people and older people and veterans, just like their coaching staff that I just mentioned, just like their roster. And I think that's maybe the secret sauce. Everything worked because everyone could point Spider-Man meme style at another phase of this building and say, hey, I recognize that. That works. This works. That works. We're all kind of functioning of the same ethos right now.
Yeah, the group contributing and working as a team was so obvious on the field tonight. You think about the secondary, and we'll get to Cooper DeJean's comment in just a second. And then you think about the pass rush. I'm counting the quarterback pressures. 6 different players had at least 3 pressures in this game. 4 had at least 4. Josh Sweat leads the way. But who is it but Milton Williams that gets the Brandon Graham-like sack, the forced fumble on Mahomes? Patrick Mahomes with 3 turnovers in this game. Ajomo had 4 pressures in this game. Moro Ajomo, who had a lot of early playing time. That was Vic actually going off tendency. For most of the year, he was really playing those 4 up front, and that's how he started this game out. But then it was a lot of Ajomo and a lot of Jalix Hunt, who he trusted more in the NFC Championship than he had in any other game this season. Nolan Smith using that speed to power despite not being the biggest guy in the world. Really, everyone on the Chiefs offensive line got work tonight at some point, but Joe Thuney especially got a lot of work. And Jalen Carter actually only had 2. Like, he was not one of those people with all the pressures, but he did push the pocket quite a bit. He was drawing a ton of double teams. He drew a holding, which I believe should be a stat. And so that sort of teamwork was so emblematic of this defense. Let's actually hear from Cooper DeJean, who's just had a magical run here as a rookie, and we talked to him a little bit about what it meant to him to share this title with some of the veterans on his team.
Here with Cooper DeJean, the author of a ridiculous rookie season and of a pick 6 in the Super Bowl. Can you walk us through that play a little bit for you?
It's just our defense working together like we have all year. Falling back right into the right spot. Threw it right to me. Sorry, I was just eating cake. Birthday cake. But then got some blocks, was able to get in the end zone. It's amazing.
Cooper, a couple of your teammates told us that they felt in that moment, the back-to-back sacks, right, and then your pick 6, it was a tonal shift. The game was yours at that point. What did you feel from them? How did you guys rally around each other after that?
Just a lot of energy, I think it helped us, keep the momentum going even more. But we knew we had to finish the job. It wasn't over right there. At halftime, we were just talking about, finishing the job, going all the way till it hit zeros. That's what we did.
Before we send you off into this New Orleans night, tell me a little bit about your DB's room and what it means to, send Darius Slay out into the night as a Super Bowl champ.
It's awesome. What he's given to me, and Q and all those older guys, what they've done for us, and the coaches too. They just poured into us ever since we got there. So I'm just happy that they get to enjoy this as well.
And by the way, Cooper, first team All-Pro of NFL Daily on NFL Network, our show. We really enjoyed watching you play.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Just a bunch of ball knowers.
Just a delightful young man, Cooper DeJean. And yeah, it could be the last game for Darius Slay. And
he was having so much fun post-game on the field. I loved watching that. He has more fun than I think anybody all the time. So
he also, Cooper DeJean, made it sound so easy, the play that he made, and it was like, that was not an easy play. He's like, I just read it.
It was
he threw it right
the
to
Super
me.
Bowl, Cooper.
Also, he laid back and he knew Mahomes didn't see him there. That was a very instinctual play for him to be able to cover like he did and tackle in the open field on the slot, and then also to actually score the touchdown. Both that and the Zach Bond interception. It's like, yeah, you can be in position, but you have to actually make the plays. And that interception by Bond after the one by DeJean kind of made it go from oh, this is really going bad if you're a Chiefs fan, to, oh my God, Patrick Mahomes is melting down.
Yep.
And the Eagles have the dudes to take advantage. Let's talk a little bit about the Chiefs, because they have to be stunned. I know the final score is 40-22, and I actually respect that they're playing hard in the fourth quarter and they get those touchdowns. That's what you should do. It was 34-0. This is Mahomes. We've never seen a Super Bowl or even a game like this from the Chiefs. Like, literally in the entire Mahomes era, there has not been one single game like this where they just had the doors blown off. Like, forget a Super Bowl. Like, this never happened to the Tom Brady Patriots. And I really think about Brady, who was pretty eloquent, actually. I'll actually him. In the pregame show, talking about how painful those Super Bowl losses are. And as you get older, you start to realize how long that they're going to stick with you. And I do wonder if the weight of it got to them at all finally, because they did not play loose. They did not respond well after it was not going well. And the two guys that often step up the most in these moments had two of the worst first halves I've ever seen, Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes.
Travis Kelce did not have a catch. He had 2 drops-ish. I guess they'll go in the advanced stats
one for
that
one.
way.
Yeah.
But he did not have his first catch until the third quarter, pretty late in the third quarter. And Patrick Mahomes threw the 2 interceptions, took 3 sacks, faced a 43% pressure rate with no blitzes, took 7 hits, was 0 for 6 on third down, had 1 first down, 23 total yards on 20 plays, and only 33 yards passing, and like a 10.7 passer rating at the half. And it was stunning to watch. And I'll go back to what I said at the start, because we were all there. We all felt this tone that this game took immediately, even before anyone took the field. The Chiefs came out and played like they felt the hostility of the crowd pressing down on them.
Yeah.
Really, I do think that the crowd and that energy and like the tone that it set early, they manifested all of that immediately. That is what it looked like, is exactly what that crowd sounded like today.
Yeah, when you're in that environment, you do one of two things. You feed into it and you feed off of it, and you're like, all right, let's go. I can think about Jared versus Philly during the divisional round, right? Or you let it get to you, and you let that wear on you, and then and sometimes it shocks you so much that you don't know how to react. They got the doors blown off of them and punched in the mouth by the Eagles on the field, too. So you combine the two things, and suddenly they're like, whoa, what's going on here? We didn't expect this. We're the 2-time defending champions. We know what we do. And yet nothing they tried to do worked.
And I think it shows, too, Greg, and I want to hear more from you on this, is when your best player and one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen, if not the best quarterback we've ever seen play football, when he's not just not at his best, but when he is at one of his worst performances that we've seen from him, it really shows the flaws and the weaknesses, I think, in the rest of that group and the rest of that offense.
It's true that they're not a one-man team.
No.
But they aren't used to being in a position like this, and I can almost hear the listeners screaming at me like, oh, you've never had a game like this? Like, how about the freaking Super Bowl 5 years ago? Like, how about that game? And then I would hear them in my head, and I would say, that's a good point.
I'm worried about you. You're hearing a lot of voices.
It's true, though. It's true.
I want to get that checked out.
It's kind of crazy that a guy that is, like, literally this was the second biggest deficit that they've ever had. They scored some points late in that game, too. The biggest loss they ever had was a 22-point game against Tennessee, actually. It's crazy that 2 of them have happened in the Super Bowl, and it makes you think about what a freaking brutal sport it is.
Yeah.
Because it's probably Travis Kelce's last game, if I had to guess. And there's no guarantee that Mahomes gets back here in the next few years. Like, there's no guarantee about anything. He might be back, and they might win again next year, too. Like, there's no guarantee that doesn't happen. But the Patriots went 10 years between Super Bowls with a lot of great teams. They had a couple losses in that stretch. And as great as this entire run has been, Brady said it, like, he woke up the next morning after those losses, and he couldn't believe it had freaking happened. He thought he still had another game to play. And when you're as prideful and as incredible as Patrick Mahomes is going to be, as great as he is, this is going to hurt incredibly bad.
But what are the common threads between those 2 losses? Because, yes, Mahomes had a bad game. You could have said the same thing about that loss in 55 against the Buccaneers. They played dominant defense.
I think Mahomes played well in that game. That's my hat. I don't even know if that's
But they didn't
take.
protect him well. That was the cause of injuries. They lost a ton of guys in the offensive line going into that game. They were just piecing it together with chewing gum and duct tape. That was not the case this time. They just didn't have a good offensive line. Their investment at left tackle, Kingsley Suamata and Wanya Morris, neither of them proved to be good enough that they moved Joe Tooney out there.
Morris wasn't even active for this game.
Exactly. That's just, I hate to say it because failure feels like a strong word, but it is a bit of a failure on the front office. And the margins are so slim because you are paying some of these guys like Kelce, like Jones, like Mahomes, a lot of money. So I think that this could be a come-to-Jesus moment for these Chiefs. Much like the Patriots changed their identity over the course of time. They were a defensive-laden team in that first run. They became more of an offensive team later. They could do.
Chiefs have been doing it, to their credit. They have been changing as they go, and I have no question that they will change and figure things out. And obviously, they're one of the favorites, if not the favorite, for next season. I'm not saying that. It's just hard to start from scratch. They did find a great little receiver in Xavier Worthy. Shout out to him. 8 for 157 and 2. I like that you celebrated those touchdowns, Xavier. Like, it's the Super Bowl. Enjoy your first downs.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think it caught up to him a little bit too. Some of the patches and the quick fixes that they had. I really admire Joe Thuney for piecing together the end of this year the way that he had to, getting moved, kicked out to the outside, and then of course in doing that you're going to make part of your interior a little bit weaker because you're removing one of your best players and putting him out of position.
That is so difficult to make that transition, by the way.
Yes, exactly. And then then the things that they could do to mitigate some of the pressure that they face. We talked about it right at the top. They tried to pick and poke down the field in little pieces. The DBs, the Eagles linebackers and the DBs were just not letting him do it. So when you can't do the things to help protect the fact that your offensive line is just generally in a frazzled state that you've had to make up for, and those answers don't really work. And then when Pat Mahomes is scrambling around, people are getting to him and hitting him and starting to force him off his throws and then eventually taking him to the ground as the game continued. All of those things to help alleviate that embattled and like I said, very frazzled offensive line, they just weren't going to work. And then the Eagles could stay on their A-plus plan against them. That's very rare to see that from an Andy Reid coach team, is another team being able to stay in their A-plus plan.
There are
against
adjustments
them.
Unless the personnel just doesn't stack up against what you're facing. Then at that point, you have nothing, no options.
And this is still one of the greatest, if not the greatest, 6-year run in NFL.
Oh, absolutely.
Ever won. They've got 3 in 6 years. They lost 2 convincingly. I mean, that didn't happen to the Patriots. I'm just saying.
Of course, it came back to this.
And they got to an AFC championship in the 6th game. I mean, that is just outrageously excellent run that there's not a huge reason to believe is going to end. But I got to think this was a very popular result.
Well,
across the country. In Buffalo, in Baltimore, all the teams that Kansas City has beaten, you gotta
Vegas, Denver.
You gotta at least feel a little bit like, well, if the Eagles can do it, we can do it next time too, right?
Is there some small part of you that's like, like, you know, you didn't get to do the thing that would make you greater in a dynasty than the Patriots that you love so dearly.
I've been honking about this Eagles team for a while, and I've been enjoying.
You did pick against them one week.
Their success. That was a big mistake. But I meant like over the last.
Yeah, it's been incredible.
5-6 years.
It's
but
been
yeah,
incredible.
I am that guy. It's less about the Patriots. I don't think that matters, and more of the general. Like fatigue of seeing the same team win over and over in the same sorts of ways.
As long as it's not your team.
Yeah. I mean, of course, if it's my team, that's great.
Hold his feet to the fire.
We did see Drake May, by the way.
Oh, my God. We saw Drake May on Bourbon Street. We were walking to the NFL media party, and we passed right by Drake May, and I whipped my head around to, like, give Greg the look, and he clocked Drake May. He knew it was him and froze.
Oh, no.
Well, that's not true. The way you're telling this story is preposterous.
It's very accurate. I am a journalist.
We were walking by, and I just sort of saw him at the corner of my eye as we're walking by, and I thought...
I saw you clock him.
I was like, I think that's Drake May, but he looks too small, and then kept walking. And you were like, that was Drake May. And I was like, that was Drake May.
Yeah.
And
like, also, by the way, he was a massive human. I don't know what Greg was
There's a lot of
thinking.
large humans in this town right now.
Me, myself included.
We've spent so much time around Shook the last week.
You're desensitized to it.
That he was smaller than you. I'm
not even kidding. I'm not even kidding. That's a factor. I was just with like Henry Hodgson and Giant from NFL Network, Andy Gregg, and it's just after a certain point, you're my size, if someone's over like 5'10", they're all about the same. And he just looked like, I think it was his baby face. He just looked like he was about
You're like
12
this
years old.
kid should not be on Bourbon Street right now. Like that was my second thought was I don't think you're old. Are you old enough?
Just
to be
barely.
here?
Yeah, just
if it makes you feel any better, I was in the hotel gym this morning and I saw M-Rob and I didn't realize it was him until he was leaving and waved to me, and I feel terrible about it.
Okay, well that's fine. You know,
it happens to everybody.
That's a
He just wanted a reason to tell us that he was at the gym this morning. So,
yeah.
I just want to make you feel better.
Little bragger. While we're here, do we have any other weird sightings for the week? I saw Puka Nacua in the hotel lobby and got to get a picture with my son and Puka, the author of Puka Nacua Rules. So I was very excited about that. Told him that. Puka Nacua Rules. That will be with me for the rest of my life, that little moment.
Yeah, and I asked you, I was like, oh, I was so excited for you. I was like, did Walker like freak out? Was he so excited? And Greg was like, no, he played it cool. Like he was internally excited. And I was like, that is so Greg's child. Like, oh yeah, no, like, yeah, I'll be working with him someday. So, you know, but internally very excited and emotional.
Absolutely having the time of his life. He was just as excited to meet Will Hernandez at a dinner that the NFL threw. My friend Mike Valdez-Fowley for the growing Latino fan base and people that are involved in the league. And we don't need to get too deep into that. I don't want to quite finish talking about this game, but we're there. Let's give a couple more shout outs before we go. We can do a little rapid fire. You mentioned Kellen Moore. I just want to give him some props for that, the way he started this game, how every single formation was completely different, and especially that totally bananas one where he's got 3 receivers on both sides. And I know it only ended up being a 4-yard play, but if you watched how they came out of this game fast, I'm really glad I remembered to say that, like, every snap was with between 15 and 20 seconds on the clock, and yet every formation was so different. So they weren't letting Spagnuolo do all the substitutions and the crazy stuff that he wants to do, and yet they were showing so much and getting so much information about how they were going to respond. They were on the front foot. Kellen Moore kind of came after him, and I saw a clip of Steve Spagnuolo on the broadcast losing his freaking mind late in that second quarter. And I was like, I have not seen that Steve Spagnuolo since he was on the sideline as the St. Louis Rams head coach. And I thought, like, wow, this is different. They are
did
cooking.
Feel like one of those games.
It really did. All right, that was not rapid fire at all.
Yeah, that was a little long, though.
Well, you wouldn't be you if that were the case, Greg. We love you.
Mekhi Becton goes out. Tyler Steen comes in and replaces him for a little bit. Mekhi comes back and then celebrates a touchdown by hitting some dance moves that made me concerned about his knee.
I want to shout out Avonte Maddox because on that I believe it was 4th and 3, the game felt like pretty over, but that was the one that really punctuated it.
Yep.
That pass breakup. It was a really athletic, really smart play. It just, again, went to show that everybody got a piece of this action. I loved that. I also loved Brandon Graham coming off of the triceps and just playing with this massive, and he got snaps too. And he had a couple moments, and he was playing with this massive brace around his left arm. He got to walk out as one of the captains for the coin toss, and we got to talk to him post-game, Greg, and I just thought, again, brimming with emotion. He brought his kids to our interview, and he was so proud. They are old enough now for them to remember not only what this looked like for him to win this, but also for what it took for him to come back from this.
Here with Brandon Graham, just after he won his second Super Bowl title with both of his kids. What does it mean for you to win this in front of your family?
It feels so good. The last time I won one, it was just baby girl. Now I got both of them here. They both understanding, and they've seen how hard we worked this offseason and all season. And I'm just hoping that what they take away from it is you just got to stay focused, even during storms that you go through. You got to talk it out. Then you got to put your head down and keep working. And that's what this team did all year.
Brandon, what will it mean for you to have your kids old enough to remember what it looked like for you to battle back to be in this game tonight?
Well, it feels good for them because they seen what I went through this year. Even during the season when I got hurt, baby girl, man, she even cried and I cried, and it's all they all in tune with what's going on. So very thankful that they got to experience this, and we all smiles right now.
Yeah, I'm sure it wasn't easy, but you looked like you were ready to come back. You gave that right tackle some work tonight. What got into that entire defensive line in this game?
We knew it was all the marbles. We needed it. We didn't want this year to go in vain, all the good stuff that we did, and all we did was lock in all week. We sacrificed a little partying to get what we wanted. Now we can go party and do what we do.
Brandon, you're the star, but I want to ask your kids one question, okay? Guys, how proud of you are you of your dad tonight?
How about that play by Milton Williams that looked just like your play back in the Super Bowl while Tom Brady's covered it? What do you think?
I'm thankful for that boy because him, Sweaty, Nolan, JC, even though JC took 2 every play. So he opened up the door for a lot of guys with the one-on-ones, and we just won our matchups today. And very thankful for these guys.
Brandon, you guys rushed for the entire night. Vic Fangio did not have to call one blitz. The strength of the collective, everybody ate tonight. What does that mean to watch everybody get a piece of the action without needing to send extra guys?
It meant so much. We knew we had to stop the run before, and we had to make sure that we was able to cover because Mahomes is such a great quarterback. We know that he got some great. They got some great coaches over there on top of great players. And we had to make sure that we had the best execution that we had all year. And the boys, they played hard today.
Congrats. You've already celebrated 1 Super Bowl title. What do you learn from that you're going to put into this celebration now?
Well, you know what? Last time I had stood out here just so I could feel it because, you know, when you go through adversity, you don't want to run. And I'm so happy that I stuck through it because now we got the green confetti coming down. And it just feels so much sweeter because we knew what happened last time, and we want to make sure that that didn't happen again.
I have to ask you. You know I got to ask. Are you coming back?
Hey, let me tell you. Right now, I'm just so happy we won. It's the best way. The best way to do it right now is to leave a champion. And so right now, that's where I'm at.
Brandon Graham always shows up in the Super Bowl. Appreciate you. Back on NFL Daily.
We got to see a Kendrick concert today?
They're going to kick us out of this trailer. We're nearing midnight here in New Orleans. What a week it has been. I'm glad you mentioned Kendrick. Let's get some thoughts. Let's start with the Kendrick aficionado.
Yeah, the people at home loved it. I personally loved Serena.
I was just going to say that. I loved that moment.
Yes, that was fantastic.
Layered, by the way, if you know the lore.
A lot of references there.
Yeah.
You dig into that, Google it, find it out. I love that he, a lot of people probably thought that he was going to bring some hits in, and he really stuck it to GNX. Like he stayed true to GNX and what he's done in the last year.
That was a little surprising.
But he still played not like us. He still got it in at the end. He got mustard out there. They were moving from stage to stage. It was a blast.
It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. He did an outstanding job. Again, loved all the layers to the performance, loved the references. I thought it was an important performance as well as a really, really good one.
I mean, and to hear in the stadium 60,000+ people scream out in unison.
A minor.
Yeah.
Just levels to it. I mean.
And then it said game over in the stands on all the little wrist lights too, by the way. That was crazy.
Just the dominoes that started.
First-person shooter.
To end up here.
Mm-hmm.
I think Roger Sherman said it best that Drake lost this beef in the worst way possible of any rap beat in history, and that includes people who literally were shot and killed over the rap beef.
Yeah, it's true. Because it was happening on a worldwide stage.
It's truly remarkable, and that's why we have to at least mention it here. There is no musical moment that is even in conversation with this one in the history of rap. Like, if there is a world that will be writing like books about music history in 100 years, they'll be ranking the best rap battles ever, and like it'll be one. There will be no two. It is just. That was an amazing moment. Also, brought me back to that Serena Wimbledon moment, which was
which was incredible. Yeah, we were watching videos of it up in the press box before the third quarter started. It was fantastic.
Although I would have liked a little all right or swimming pools or.
I know. I was hoping for
So many hits, so little time.
Poetic Justice, Money Trees.
I guess we're out. I guess we're out of football things to talk about. That's it.
The football was fun.
We just had the best week.
We did.
Oh my God, we had an amazing week. I can't believe this experience all year. It's been incredible. You guys are obviously a huge part of that. Gregg is literally the reason for that.
Yeah.
I feel so grateful. Like I'm gonna crash really hard off of this adrenaline at some point, and I'm probably going to have a good cry, and then I'm going to think about like how my life has changed over the last year, and this was really the culmination of it. What a beautiful week this was.
Yeah, special thanks to you, Gregg, really, for assembling all of us,
you guys,
rotating the group.
I love you too, and doing the show with you is such a total joy, and the vibe that we have on this show, how everyone who is a regular part of the show and I wish could be here now just brings their own different energy, but there's just kind of no agenda, and it's fun. And I really wish Patrick Claybon was here, and I wish Steve Weiss was here. And he's been sending me joking texts all week of like, oh, how come you didn't invite me on this radio row? It's like, hey, you're covering the freaking Chiefs. You're on network all day.
Steve is so busy, yes. And also Colleen, we kind of got to celebrate with her because she was hosting the game today.
Yeah, to see her up on the big screen is like one of the joys of the season. And everyone else, obviously, that has contributed, and that includes behind the scenes. I want to thank, before we get out of here, of course, Jason English and Sean at iHeart for helping us throughout the course of the week. David Singer for getting us those guests. Matt Schneider, as I mentioned, for really steering the ship and helping us out tonight as well. Will Gavin for putting me on TalkSport. Thank you, Will.
Yeah.
That was freaking awesome. We have Drake here. And Jay, obviously, with all the camera work, it takes a lot of people to put a season like this together. And our first show that we did, Jourdan, with Patrick, was about what's going to bring us joy. What are we looking for that's going to bring us joy in this season? And it has been a total joy to do this show and to watch this freaking Eagles team. It is such a crazy, weird, draining build up, but also you're just like hoping to get to the finish line, and you just hope that it all makes sense and pays off in the end. And there was something about this game and this team that I absolutely love. They are the champions of the first year of NFL Daily. That's how they will be known.
And in the words of Nick Sirianni, let's run that back.
Yeah, and I have to say, I know you want to get us out, Gregg, but I do want to tell this story. So I was going to an agency event, and Gregg was kindly offered to walk me there. It was dark and all of that. We were having a good talk, and I turned to you and I said, I already knew you before. We've been colleagues for a while, but to get to work with you this close, I mean, you see people. Like, if you're rubbing shoulders with them, like, every single second of every single day, and this goes for you too, Nick, like, I got to see just so much of how you guys operate and how you work. And Gregg, I said this to you, and I'm going to embarrass you now. It is so cool when you meet someone who is one of your heroes and they turn out to be even better than you ever thought they could be, and that is you. So thank you for changing my life. Thank you to iHeart for changing our lives and for making this the best week possible.
You are making me feel uncomfortable, but in a great.
I love that for me.
We're all bad at taking compliments.
In the best way.
I know, this is the anti-compliment group.
Deflect.
Possible. Look, we're all in our feelings and we're all doing these things, but it doesn't end here. We're going to be back on NFL Daily later this week. And look, the Combine, I've already bought my tickets. Literally leaving 2 weeks from today.
I'll be there.
And we have a ton of shows getting you ready for free agency and the Combine. This is kind of my season. I've been working on the top 101.
I know,
free
you're so excited. The Gregg
rankings.
list comes out soon.
I love this time of year. And I love that we got to spend all this time in New Orleans. Let's hit that music for the last time of the 2025 season. We're in a trailer. They're going to turn off the power any second for Nick Shook and Jourdan Rodrigue. And yeah, when Jalen Hurts is up on that podium holding up the Vince Lombardi trophy, I guess football, it's officially back.